What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Pam, and today I have a really fun video for you if you are into seeds, and I am. Today we're going to be looking at my 25 must-grow varieties of seeds. I'm going to cover just edibles today, and I'm going to do a separate video for flowers. So all of the seeds that I chose today are basically something that I have grown. It has worked out for me in one way or another, and I think that they're interesting or really reliable or just overall delicious. And let's get right into it. I'm going to apologize ahead of time for my gardener's manicure because I paint my nails for you guys, and then I have to do the dishes. Together someday I hope to buy me a dishwasher. Someday. Okay, so we're gonna start with a few herbs. Now, I could literally talk about seeds for hours. I have a bunch, and perhaps someday we will do that. But for this, I went through and I just picked up what immediately spoke to me. So I'm gonna show you in the herb department 3 herbs that I use a lot for either tea or just smelling. So the first up is Licorice Mint, and it goes by several different names, but usually I search Licorice Mint and this is what I get. And this goes really particularly well with my other favorite herb, which is Tulsi. Now I have a whole packet here of different varieties of Tulsi, but generally I started out with this one, and this is the one that I will direct you to most likely from Fruition Seeds. This is just a good hardy Tulsi variety, and I have grown almost all of these. There are a couple in here that I've not grown yet, so I will let you guys know how that goes, obviously, as we go through the gardening year. So together with the Licorice Mint, so good. Next up we have some cinnamon basil, and I got this packet in a seed swap last year, so that was really fun. And this is just something that I need you to grow so that you can go into your garden in the morning and just run your hands up a stalk of that cinnamon basil and just, oh my God, I can't wait. Can't wait. And it is amazing in flower arrangements too. It just adds like this amazing smell, and it's beautiful. It's like this purpley basil. Okay, so next up we have my favorite variety of kale right now. I find this one it grows nice and quick. It's really good when it's young and tender, and that is the Rainbow Lacinato Kale. And I got this particular one from Hudson Valley Seed Co. So they are closer to me in location. So this one is like a real nice cold hardy kale. And when you're shopping for seeds in general, it is good to try to stick to places that specialize in your region's seeds, because they're going to be the ones that are the hardiest and the best selected for your area. But that doesn't mean that you can't, order from places across the country. You just want to try to stick within your zone and, just make sure that you're getting something that's going to thrive in your environment. And if you can't find that information, just give it a try. For lettuce, I picked up 2 that I know that I'm going to plant every single year. They're just very dependable, really delicious. The first is the black-seeded Simpson, and this one comes from Zella Jake Farms. They're on Etsy, or at least that's where I order from, and they're located in Florida, and they have very good prices on seeds and a good amount of seeds in the packet, and they also ship fairly quickly, so especially if you're in that area, that is a good place to look for seeds. But you can get the black-seeded Simpson seeds like anywhere. They're very popular. So the next one is the Marvel of 4 Seasons, and I'm not going to offend the French by trying to say it with a proper accent, but here you go. It means Marvel of 4 Seasons, and it is exactly that. So this is a lettuce that's going to do well in cool temperatures as well as warm temperatures. And if you've never grown lettuce before, if it gets too hot, it's going to send up seed stalks. It's going to bolt, and then your lettuce is going to taste like shit. So you want to try to find lettuce that doesn't do that, or keep it in a cool area. But that is a real good lettuce to just plant in like the understory of your garden. You can plant it like under and between things, and it will do really, really well that way. So for carrots, I wanted to grab a few varieties, just thinking in terms of like an early carrot, a main season carrot, and then something that's good for a container. So for the early carrot, I have from Fedco Seeds, one of my favorite seed vendors, who do not have attractive packaging, but it's fine because they have amazing seeds. And they're also a really cool company. They're a co-op, very cool worker environment there from all I can tell. This is the coral carrot, and this is an early season carrot. So this is kind of like the first slew of carrots that I put out there when I start gardening in the spring, and that served me really well this year. It took me a while to get the hang of carrots, but I seem to have found like the right looseness of soil, the right moisture level, and the right timing in my area. So I'm gonna get through another season and then put my thoughts together, have a better video for you about carrot growing. So the next one is a main season carrot, and this is the Scarlet Nantes. And this is a pretty common variety, and there's a reason for that. They came out really uniform. They grew, it says 65 to 70 days on here. I would say I left mine in for around 80, but they all came out really good. They're delicious. They stored really well. So I think that if you're getting started with carrots, it's good to go with like the dependable varieties. We want to grow all like the fancy purple ones and colored ones, and they're cool and they're fun, but honestly, there's nothing that tastes better in my experience than the coral and the Scarlet Nantes. I also really enjoyed these, which is the ox heart carrot, and these are a good container variety because they are not especially long. They're pretty squat, almost like a radish size, so they're not going to need to go down very far. They also store for a long time. They did pretty well in the bottom drawer of my fridge. They do take a little while though. These are a 90-day carrot, so you wouldn't think, because they are so small that that they would take so long, but they do. So there you go. But they are very cool. And also make sure that you mark them, because otherwise you're gonna pull them up and think that you really screwed up your other carrots, which is what happened to me. Next, I have a beet for you, and this is another very cool company, the All Good Things Organic Seeds, and this is the Touchstone Gold Beet. These are beautiful, they are delicious, and they are the first beets that I have gotten to grow really successfully in my garden. I don't know what my problem is, but I have struggled with beets so far in the past. But these did really well, and they were so cool looking. They're like this bright yellow, beautiful. And speaking of very beautiful vegetables, this is the watermelon radish. And these I discovered are a fall radish. So I was always trying to plant these in the spring, and I believe it was Petra from Fruition Seeds. I was watching something that she did on watermelon radish, and she was like, just don't even bother, do it in the fall, if you're in the Northeast at least. So I did it in the fall, and sure enough, they actually grew. I lost a couple to the weird weather that we had, but the ones that I got were really delicious. And it was really cool to have something different in the fall instead of just like a repetition of what you plant in the spring. We have the Sugar Magnolia Snap Pea, and this is a purple potted pea, and these came from Pine Tree Garden Seeds, which is another favorite of mine. They are also in Maine, and these grew like, I mean, immediately. These germinate very fast. They're a 70-day crop, but I found I was picking things off a little bit before that. And I love Pine Tree because they give you like cooking suggestions on the back of their packets. So these grew, and they are beautiful. They're so pretty on my, they're really beautiful on my cattle panel arches. I don't know what I'm doing a visual for you. I don't feel super well today, so if I seem like out of my mind, I am. Testing negative, don't worry. So I will definitely always grow these. I'm not a huge, I have decided, as of the last few years that I'm not a huge snap pea fan, so I don't need to plant a whole bunch of different varieties of it. So I'm probably just gonna stick with this one this year. Next up, I have two different kinds of cucumbers for you. These are also, once again, I've always struggled with cucumbers and I did really well with both of these this year. So, you know, I could say that it's me getting better, but I'm gonna go ahead and give some of the credit here to the varieties because both of these were great. The first one is really fun. This is a dragon's egg cucumber, and this came from Fruition Seeds. This is a 65-day to maturity cucumber. These are delicious. They're really crisp. They have a really thin rind, and the fruits grow really fast because they only need to get about this big. So once it starts putting out production, I mean, you're just pulling dragon's egg cucumbers off every single day. And I found if I succession sowed them, which is really the trick to those vine crops that tend to die with disease very quickly, is you just keep planting one more plant every 2 weeks or so. I did that this past year with the dragon's egg, and I had cucumbers for most of the year. It was awesome. I found that they held up pretty well to the heat as well. I really only had a small gap of time where I couldn't keep the plants alive. And then, of course, the silver slicer cucumber, and this one came from Hudson Valley. And this is just I mean, these are so good. These are really, really tasty. Even my fellow's not huge on cucumbers, and he really liked these as well. So this is also known for its powdery mildew resistance. It was bred by Cornell. So this is definitely a must grow for me. I don't like to fuss with cucumbers and vine crops. So once I find one that is relatively resistant to disease, I'm going to stick with that one until I find something better. So I might not stick with it. Shut up. So next up, I have two different kinds of squash for you. I am not the best squash grower so far. We are going to try some new things this year, but I had some luck with these. This one is a vine borer resistant 62 days to maturity summer squash, and that is the Tromboncino zucchini. Sorry if I said that horribly. Tromboncino? Anyway, it's the big curly squash. So good. These were delicious. They're so fun. They get huge really fast. So once you see one, you know, get past the point where it's either gonna make it or rot off, they just start getting bigger and bigger, and they're actually really good when they get large, which is not usually the case with a summer squash. So these are really fun. If you've never grown them, give them a shot. And this one also came from Fruition Seeds. And then the other one is my favorite, just my favorite squash in the whole world. I could eat these forever, and they're just available for such a short time, and I just love them so much. So I'm gonna really try to make a good crop of these work this year. But this is a bush delicata squash, and this is a powdery mildew resistant variety from Fruition Seeds. If you've never had delicata squash, it is like the skin is edible. You can slice it and put it into a salad. Oh my gosh, it's really, really good. I'm hoping this year to show you guys how to actually use some of this stuff in the kitchen as well on the channel if people are interested. And maybe even if they're not. So next up I have some beans. Not a huge bean person, but I think it's fun to grow one or two varieties every year. And as much as I love all of the fun, funky varieties of beans that I have grown over the years, your rattlesnake beans, your Scarlet, whatever they are, we're winding down here. They're not super good. So I kind of am going to stick this year to one fun kind and one very dependable, cannibal, very usable kind. So the first is the dependable, the rust resistant, the Kentucky Wonder pole bean. And all of these Fairy Moore seeds I think I just got at, you know, a hardware store or something. And then this one is the fun one, and this is just the red noodle bean. So you've probably seen these on YouTuber garden channels, and that's just because, you know, they're really cool. Really cool. I didn't eat a single one last year, but I did plant them a little late, so I didn't really get very many to harvest to begin with, but they are really fun. They seem to attract a lot of ants. I don't know if they are ant pollinated. I got the suspicion that they were, but yeah, they were very anty, but also very cool and looked very good on the arched trellis, which we are gonna, I guess, continue to have a motion for that. We are almost done. For the corn, I thought I pulled out 2, but I guess I only pulled out 1. So this is just this is a grindable or popping corn or just a decorative corn. I was using it just for decorative corn, and then I left it out for the birds and critters. But it was really fun to grow. It gets really tall and it's absolutely beautiful. And that is the glass gem corn. So this year I'm definitely going to try to do a better job of keeping the earwigs from eating the silks that come out of corn. I guess that's like a big problem, and it tends to affect how many kernels actually develop because the little asshole earwigs chew off the silks. Last year was my first year growing corn, so that was something I had to learn the hard way, but I did manage to get a few ears of this to actually grow, and just having it tied to a little pole outside during the fall was just, I was very happy. So we're gonna try that again, and I also have a few other kinds of corn I'm gonna try this year. So stay tuned, because I'm also gonna do a video of seeds that I've never grown before that I'm really excited to try this year. Okay, so next up is a really easy thing to grow that I think everybody should try at least once, and that is the ground cherry. This is the Aunt Molly's variety. This one is from Hudson Valley, and there's also the one I like a little better. I don't have any more of. I need to order some, but it's the pineapple. It'll just say pineapple ground cherry. And I think I got that one from Zella Jake on Etsy. And that one was really, really good and very prolific. But this one did really well in my garden too. And these are sort of a lower nightshade plant where they're gonna stay about, you know, this big, and they'll spread out, and the little husks will drop off the plant when they're dried up, and then that's when you're harvesting them. So you can use like a landscape fabric if you don't want them falling into the dirt, but I found that, you know, the insects really don't even touch them or anything, especially if you get to them first. So these are my favorite garden snack. Every morning I would go out to do my little rounds in the garden, and I would get a fistful of these and eat them while I walked around. And they taste, it's like a cotton candy, pineapple-y tomatillo. It's so good. So if you've never had one, you definitely have to grow them. And like a relative of that would be like the gooseberry, which I believe you harvest on the bush. Those are really good too. Okay, so when it came to tomatoes and peppers, if you guys watched all my seed videos last year, you know I am a tomato and pepper seed collector. I have a ton of varieties, and I grew so many last year. It was borderline unsustainable, but I actually got to try a whole bunch of different varieties. I also got to give away a whole bunch of plants to my friends, and that was really fun. Every year I go a little overboard planting tomatoes and peppers, so having tried a bunch of varieties, here's what I know will be on constant rotation in my garden going forward. When it comes to paste tomatoes, I actually think that if I could have found the package, I would have selected the Amish paste tomato. But because I could not find that, this is another close second. Like, I could happily stick with this one. I got just a slightly less of a harvest last year with these, but these are really fantastic paste tomatoes from Fruition Seeds. This is the 10 Fingers of Naples paste tomato. And this is an heirloom cousin of the San Marzano, and this is a 75-day indeterminate tomato. So these grew pretty well in my garden. They stayed fairly disease-free, and I got a pretty good harvest. So I think this year I'm going to focus a little bit more on my paste tomatoes, and I'm going to make sure that I succession plant those, because I found that a lot of times I wasn't harvesting quite enough to can, but too much to eat. So I would need to like do a lot of freezing and then canning, and I would prefer to just get them right from the garden to the canner this year. So we're gonna give that a shot. But this is a great variety to get started with paste tomatoes if you're looking to do some canning or even just making fresh sauce in the summertime. And then next up, I have a really fun cherry tomato. I don't think this even has any seeds in it, so I'm gonna need to put an order in, but this one comes from Fruition Seeds, and this is the Dancing with Smurfs. This is a purpley red cherry tomato. It's delicious. It comes on pretty early. It's a 60-day indeterminate, and it's done really well in my garden. It's a really long producer, so I find that like I'm picking tomatoes off of it for months after it starts producing. And out of all of the plants that I've given away, these are always the ones that people come back asking for more of. So I'm very excited to grow some more of these, and I'm gonna put this over here so I remember to order more. Next up, I have another kind of cherry tomato, except this is a tiny, even smaller cherry tomato, and this is just a really fun thing to grow. This is, these actually come from, oh, where did I get these from? I am spacing on the name of the place I got these from because obviously they're just handwritten labels, but I will stick it right here and it will be linked below, and they have some really cool varieties, so definitely check them out. But this is the Bonsai cherry tomato, and these plants stay about this big. So cute, very container friendly, so if you are just growing on your porch, if you succession planted these every 2 weeks starting in like May in this area, I'm in zone 6B, you could have little cherry tomatoes on your porch throughout most of the summer. So I think this is a fun little plant. I thought I was just gonna get one flush of tomatoes off of it and then it was gonna be all done, but it actually put out a second crop every time that I grew a plant of this. So these are amazing, and I definitely recommend checking them out. They're so cute. And then for a slicer tomato, my favorite by far last season was the Thorborn's Terracotta tomato, and this came from True Love Seeds, another great company. This is a 75-day slicer tomato. These have like a coppery brown flesh to them, and they are very uniform. They stayed really pest-free. They don't have any folds or anything to have rot spots in. So they were just beautiful fruit. The plant was really healthy. It stayed really disease resistant. Just overall delicious. I mean, the flavor, I could deal without any of the other stuff. Like, that doesn't really make me select a tomato necessarily, but on flavor alone, this is hands down the best tomato that I grew last season, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that you check this one out. Oh, and finally, we're gonna end it off with some peppers. Now, if you're wondering where the melons were and some other different kinds of edibles, it just means I haven't successfully grown any yet, so stay tuned. We're gonna try and fix that this year. So I did not, I think that I'm out of them, so I couldn't find an envelope. But for your regular slicer sweet pepper, I had the most luck with the King of the North variety this past year. So I'm definitely gonna try that again. So pretend I have a packet of that right here. So for a spicy pepper, I picked the Buena Mulata pepper, and this one is from True Love Seeds. So this is a Horace Pippin variety from the early 1900s, black caterers of Baltimore and Philly. Very cool. I believe this seed was found in a freezer. It had gone like almost to, you know, gone, extinct. Would it be extinct? But they managed to find this one little stash of this pepper and bring it back to consumer production, so very exciting. This is like a purple cayenne. It does eventually turn this really deep red, but it starts off and spends a lot of time very dark purple. They're just a little bit spicier than a normal cayenne, I think, but they're not like off the chart spicy, at least in my opinion. I can handle a little bit of spice, but these are just absolutely gorgeous, really tasty, and a very cool variety if you look up the backstory of it. I know I've talked about it before. The pepper I need to get started today. This is the Habanada, and this is a heatless habanero, and it is exactly what it says it is. It has all the taste of a habanero, but it is a sweet, heatless pepper. They are beautiful. They are so pretty. They're like a sugar rush peach in the sense that they're just like an unnaturally beautiful pepper. And those are also a really cool variety, but I've talked about them before. But this one, if you can't do the heat, but you want that smoky flavor of a spicy pepper, definitely grow these. These are super productive. They were delicious. I'm going to grow way more of them this season because I want to be able to save a bunch for the winter. So this is like an 80-day to green and 100-day to fully ripe pepper variety. So this is something you're going to want to get started relatively soon. You just want to look at your seed packets in general. They will let you know how many days it takes to get to maturity, so then you can sort of plan your harvest time and make sure that if you want succession plantings and you want a longer harvest, you know how many plants you need to plant and how many weeks apart. I'll do another video which will help demystify a little bit of the garden planning process. That is next on my list. Okay friends, so I have talked and talked and talked, but I hope I gave you some fun ideas for your garden this year. Let me know if anything piqued your interest down below, and I will see you very soon for the next one, which will be about flowers.